what I did, and it was basically self-sabotaging. That's really what it was. Because I didn't really believe in myself. And no joke, I tore the back of a McDonald's bag and I wrote my letter of entrance and sent that to Pratt. And the dean of the school wrote me an acceptance letter on a torn brown piece of bag as well. and I was just like, I guess I'm going to New York. Wow. I told my mom, and that's how I got accepted into Pratt.
Hello and welcome to Sidechannels, presented by the Fly Fish Journal. My name is Jason Rolfe. I'm the editor of the Fly Fish Journal, as well as the host of Sidechannels, along with our photo editor, Kopi Voita. I don't know how things are looking where you live, but fall is definitely in the air in my neck of the woods, which means we're slowly but surely coming to that time of year when curling up on the couch with some good reading material, a warm beverage, and maybe a dog by your side starts to sound pretty nice. We can't help you out with the beverage or the dog, but if you want some good reading material delivered straight to your mailbox 4 times each year, consider becoming a subscriber to the Fly Fish Journal. You'll get deals in the web store as well as access to our expanding digital archive. Visit theflyfishjournal.com to become a subscriber today. You know that black hole in the back of your truck where gear goes to disappear forever? Decked has put a stop to that. Fishing rods organized, power tools locked down, climbing gear, camping gear, sports gear, your kids' weird toy collection, all of it dry, secure, and actually findable. It's like a filing cabinet for your rugged side. I've got the decked drawer system in my truck, and honestly, it's a game changer. I can hit the road, get waded up, and be waist deep in the river before most people finish untangling their leaders. So stop playing hide and seek with your gear. Get decked and get after it. Check out decked.com/flyfish and treat your truck like the gear hauling beast it was born to be. Sidechannels is also supported by Patagonia Fly Fishing. Patagonia's commitment to making solid gear that stands up to all the abuse you can throw at it is matched by their dedication to our home planet. They've had some great things brewing recently, including their new Swift Current Expedition waders. Built on exploration, these waders are purpose-made for connecting with wild fish and inspired by the tireless anglers and groups fighting to protect the clean water those fish depend on. Visit patagonia.com/fly-fishing to learn more about the new Swift Current Expedition Series waders and the community of conservationists and environmental advocates that make Patagonia what it is. All right. Today, we've got part 2 of our conversation with filmmaker Chad Brown. If you need a refresher on the first part, we spent some time talking with Chad about some of his nonprofit work, specifically with the 2 organizations he's founded, Soul River Inc. and Love is King. Toward the end of that episode, we got into Chad's introduction to fly fishing and his doctor's prescription that he fish more. In this second part of our conversation, we dig a bit more into Chad's foundations as a creative individual and his background as a kid in Texas and some of the choices he makes as both a filmmaker and a photographer. That work is diverse. There's a lot of different things that he's done, and it includes a handful of photography exhibits that he's shown in, as well as films like Inward, featuring Atlanta artist Michi Meko, and Black Waters. And both of those, among other films, but both of those were selected for various film festivals over the past few years. I think one of the big things I learned in talking with Chad is that he is an absolute doer. This is a guy that if he has an idea, he's going to go out and he is going to get after it. He's going to find a way to make it happen. There's a clarity of vision there, which is hard to find these days and which I think is something worth aspiring to. If you have a minute, I'd recommend checking out chadocreative.com to see more of Chad's work, both his photography and his film. And definitely visit loveisking.org so you can keep up with Operation Rome. I know he's got some other projects going on this fall that I personally am excited to see come to fruition and get done. So with all that said, I think it's time to do the show. You're obviously a very spiritual person. Whatever that term means, it means a lot of things. And I'm wondering if that's something that has always been the case for you, or if that's something that came, after you were in the military and, sort of working through PTSD, even to this day. Is that something that, came from that, or is that something that you grew up with?
That my spirituality and has always been with me. Yeah. I have always I grew up with that. I come from a Baptist family, and I have a really interesting family background. What I'm gonna share, it goes and it will feed in two different questions that relates to my spirituality, and then also relate to just me being of African American male in the outdoors, which a lot of people have perceived me as, or not just me, or just a default, like that's not what Black people do, and, or that kind of stuff, and with me, with my story is I've always been into the outdoors. My family is a Baptist family. You said you grew up in Austin? Grew up in Austin, but I was born in a really small town called Cuero, Texas. Okay. And my grandfather was one of the last of the Black cowboys, historical. And so my upbringing was around Black rodeos. My father wrestled bulls, and that's how me and my brother was entertained on Sundays underneath a really big oak tree in front of the house. And we have a fence, and we had cattle out there and horses. And it was a simple life, on summers, I would spend my summer with my grandparents, and my grandparents will make all this food and bring it around this big old oak tree, and the family would come and we'll sit there. And as I'm eating, I would see my father out in the pasture along with his brothers and his dad, and they're over there basically wrestling bulls. Yeah. And that was my upbringing, and so I would go on hunts with my father, and my grandpa, and my dad, he's an interesting guy. He was big on kindness. Kindness was part of the foundation of just spirituality and treating people kindness and love. Golden rule. But at the same time, he would piss me off sometimes because I would get into little fights. Sounds I was like a dad. Little baghead, and I was getting into fights and everything. And no joke, every time I would get into a fight, what my dad would do, he would do two things. Number one, he would make me go and knock on the door and ask for that guy who I fought, who would probably beat his butt up already, but he would make me go and knock on the door and make me apologize to his father, to his mom. And before I would leave, I would have to give him a hug. I would have to give him a hug. And that was my upbringing. It was like, that's how my dad, and then after that, my discipline was he would not scold me, but he would point at a certain area. A good example, there may be a bunch of leaves in the backyard. He said, I want you to pick up every leaf by hand, put it in the bag, and I want you to think about what you've done. And then I want you to sit down. When we come back, we're going to talk about that, And so, and he would always integrate that teachings in with God, God is love. And we should always treat people with love.
A lot of self-reflection there too.
Yeah. You know, and so that was my upbringing. I've always been in the outdoors, always, you know, I grew up in a church, you know, and I'm not a hardcore, like, you know, Christian and nothing like that, you know.
Well, it does seem like you've really, you know, as you're talking about it, you know, whether people are putting a name on it like Baptist or whatever, or just sort of talking about their sort of inner spiritual selves.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like there's probably a lot of people that can 100% identify whether they believe in God or not.
Yeah. There's
able to identify with what you're saying, just in terms of that, you know, connection to the outdoors, connection to a river, connection to a mountain, you know, connection to just
absolutely
humanity, whatever it is.
You can call it for whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's something bigger than us out there.
Sure.
It really is. You know, if you want to call it a big ball of energy. Yeah. Because we're all walking energy, you know, and, you know, and we feel things. We can't put a name on that or can't call it. There may be some people that's non-believers, and that is okay. But there's something there. We all are witnesses to when we have the ability to wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Do you think that's the source? I mean, you obviously have a really serious sense of being called to service of different sorts. You served in the military. You've done Soul River. You're doing Love is King. Does that sense of service also come from that upbringing, or do you think that's something you learned later?
I think I learned that. I think part of that was my upbringing. You know, what my father does and what the things that he taught me. My mom is a servant as well. She's a counselor. Both my mom and my dad, they're both counselors. They're therapists. You know, and they, you know, my father focuses his career around working with young people and trying to steer their lives in the right direction. My mom, she is a therapist today, and I mean, still a therapist today, and she does a lot of work around drug rehabs and also working around empowering women. And, you know, so I think through the both of them, there's a lot of that teachings that was instilled in me in a very probably my subconscious of just being around them, you know, and going to church, you know, randomly I would go to, not all the time, but I would go to church with my mom and my father and, you know, listening to, you know, the preacher and many different sermons, and then also participating in community drives and community support and getting out. And my mom was always one where, you know, when she would just be working with like, you know, runaway teens, et cetera. And so our home would be a safe haven for runaway teens. And my mom she'll bring them in just like all the other kids, you know, me and my brother. And my father would be 100% supportive with that. He would, you know, and I think, you know, going into the military, that took a different turn in my life. I would say, I think the things that I started to face in life in the military, I would say maybe it suppressed a lot of the things that I was taught in a way. You know, and
like, you mean the military, being in the military forced you to kind of put some of that stuff that you grew up with kind of. It
did, you know,
on the back seat sort of.
It was, the military really opened me up to a different world.
Sure.
You know,
what branch were you in?
I was in the Navy.
Okay.
I was in the Navy, and my father served, you know, and, but it kind of really wasn't the reason why I went. You know, I really went because I I didn't really have enough money to finish college, and I didn't want to be a burden to my mom and my father. Just the way I was just raised, is just being a young man and taking on your own responsibility. And so that was my way of taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And but I didn't realize what I was getting into. But I also, the way I was brought up and raised, I was kind of like raised in this like very protective world,
What do you mean by protected? Like sheltered?
Yeah, sheltered. Yeah, I would say a little more sheltered. I mean, I grew up around a lot of diversity, but
sure.
I guess I was just like, there's parts of me that, I mean,
like there was a big world out there that you maybe
I didn't know.
You didn't know of until.
I didn't know. I'm going to maybe bring this up. Maybe this is something that, segue into something else though, but I didn't know about the racism that was happening in this world. I knew about it, but I didn't know. I thought that was behind me.
Like you hadn't experienced it yourself?
Yeah. My mom and my dad, the way they raised me, they educated me about it. I would, we watch, my dad would read stories to me and Black figures and, leaders and Black history. Slave, everything you think of, my mom and my dad, they did a great job of educating me, but I thought that was my past until I got into the big world and got into the military, and things was a lot different. I would say I think the military was like my grown up adult years into real
like you,
world.
You grew up quick.
Yeah.
In the
quick.
Military.
Growing up real quick, was now I'm standing in many different landscapes.
Sure.
I'm standing in a landscape of war. I'm having to navigate that and dealing with dealing with a lot of crap and navigating relationships, navigating hierarchy, navigating the differences, because military is kind of like a melting pot. You got Joe Smo from New York to Joe Smo from Idaho to Wisconsin. You got all kinds of things coming, and what makes us the same and makes us the brotherhood or the sisterhood and brotherhood is our uniform. But when that uniform comes off, there's differences.
Sure.
And those differences comes with some challenges, and it's complicated, man. It really is complicated.
I think complicated is a nice way of putting it, right?
And you mix that in with chaos, war. It's very, very complicated. And I had to grow up really fast. I got exposed. I think I just got exposed to too much in a way. And and coming out of that, I was find ways to cope and suppress what I've experienced and what I've done and seen. And
Well, I mean, this might sort of relate back to that, but I think one thing that's really, one reason I've really wanted to talk to you and do this is that you just have a real wealth and diversity of experience. Like you've done a lot of cool shit. And, whether it's Soul River Inc. or Love is King, some of these various projects, I think something that's almost, I think when you look at it all together, it makes sense, but you've done this sort of nonprofit, really service-oriented work. You were in the military, did these various things, but then, on the other hand, you're a filmmaker and an artist and a photographer. And like you went to Pratt in New York, right?
Yeah. Pratt.
How did all of that sort of start or come about? Was that always there? That creative side, I guess, of yourself. Was it always there? Was it on the surface through all of that? Or was it kind of like simmering underneath?
Yeah. That side of me, the co-creative side, I would say I get that from my mom.
Yeah.
And it's always been there. My mom, she's a spiritual person slash therapist slash free thinker.
Yeah.
If you close your eyes, you'll think you're probably talking to someone from Woodstock.
Oh yeah.
She was all
a little bit of a hippie
and artist, and tree hugger is a word you can use.
All right. That kind of people.
Yeah, and my mom, she embraced creativity. She embraced free of thought and freedom of speech, and she has always encouraged me to, be creative and explore. I remember like my mom would keep me, like when my mom's cooking, there's times I remember that my mom would buy me these big white poster boards from the grocery store and some pencils and markers, and she would give me a Disney Winnie the Pooh book, and I would recreate the Winnie the Pooh characters on these posters.
Yeah.
And that's something I would do all the time, and that started to turn into me doing a lot of portraits of people. And so at a very young age,
drawing portraits.
I would draw portraits of people.
Oh wow.
And my mom and my dad saw that, and so they allowed me to embrace that, and so there was a point where my mom will put me into like a special. I forgot. There's a word that they call it though. I can't think of the name of it, but they're like these special high school classes that focus on like talent
for arts. Yeah.
And so I would, I would do it and excel at it, and it was second nature to me. And my mom didn't know how to direct a lot of my talent, and so she would pair me up. She would, no joke, she would actually go to like an architectural firm and she would like bust in there and say, I have a son who's very talented. Can he come in and just shadow you?
Yeah.
Sometimes it wouldn't work, and then sometimes it did work, Yeah. And so at a really, really young age, that gave me a really good insight on where you can take your talent.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people don't know where you can take your talent at a young age. Some parents don't even know that, right?
Yeah. I mean, to have, that's amazing to me to think, of having a parent who sees that. Not only do they see that, but they take the initiative and say, all right, we're gonna do something about this, and we're gonna just open your eyes up a little bit to like what you're saying, sort of the potential.
Yeah.
For that.
It was really cool. I had an opportunity to shadow photographers. I had an opportunity to shadow copywriters, architects, painters, my mom would just pair me with, and I would create these really cool relationships. I was just a kid, and I would sit there all day and just watch them and take it in. And
you're just
questions.
like middle school,
high school.
Yeah.
Okay. And that carried on through high school. And by the time I got into high school, that's magnet classes. My mom, she would put me in these magnet classes, and it would just help foster more my talent and creativity. And just so happened, one of the ladies that my mom ended up pairing me with, she was a commercial artist. At that time, they called it commercial art, and she was the one that like exposed me to art schools. And I didn't know that there was even art schools, And so she exposed me to you got talent, and you can go to school to become a commercial artist if you want. And these are schools that you can apply for. And one thing led to another, and I ended up applying. Pratt didn't come, but I ended up applying to the Art Institute of Dallas. Okay. And that I ended up going there for a while. My mom and dad really, they were trying to support me and help me. But as anyone who's go to art schools, they're very expensive, very expensive. Yeah. And so I got to a point where I ran out of basically money to stay. And that's what basically became my bridge into swearing in and joining the Navy. Yeah. But I made this, this pact with myself that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do what I need to do, but I'm going to get the GI Bill. Yeah. And I'm going to want to use that to help me finish where I left off at. And that's exactly what I done, and got that GI Bill. As soon as I got out, even though my head was probably not in the right place and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but I used my GI Bill to put myself back through art school, to finish my undergraduate, which wasn't out in Dallas now it's in Atlanta. I went to the Art Institute of Art Institute of Atlanta. Yeah. And end up finishing off and getting my BFA there in visual communication design. And then after that, I freelance, and I've done a lot of really kind of crazy stuff. Remind me, I can go upstairs and get it though, but I was one of the ones that came out with the first all black comic books. And it was called Afro Man. And nice. it was Afro Man and collard green. And I'm dead serious. That's awesome. Yeah, right out of Atlanta. And it was crazy because it was man, I don't remember the whole story now, but it was two young boys in the hood walking around, seeing all this crime happening, and in a far off galaxy, you got Afrotron. And Afrotron is monitoring these two boys, and the boys like saying, man, I wish I can go and help these people and fight against this crime, blah, blah, blah. And Afrotron zaps them, and one becomes Afro Man, the other one becomes collard green. And the dynamic duel, they go out and they fight ignorance throughout the world, basically, as a city, And
this is like basically a full length comic book.
Yeah. I think I got the last only copy upstairs. Nice. And everything, and so I came out with an issue 1 and issue 2, and I actually, the money that I made from that, I took that money and paid off all of my tuition in my undergrad, and so I basically walked in one day and I just took care of it all and walked away with zero balance, and then as I was doing some more freelance work in Atlanta, I had an opportunity to do some illustrative design work for Edwin Moses. He's the Olympic gold medalist for hurdles. And so they were the hospital was doing a co-brand with him for children's division. And so
this is in Atlanta.
This is in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I had the opportunity to work on some illustrations and design work, which was really cool. And after that, I got a little bit, I wanted to go off to grad school, which was Pratt.
Yeah.
And as I was in Atlanta, I was a little bit afraid. I was a little bit scared to take a step up because I didn't think I had what it takes to go to grad school, to be honest with you. But
well, I imagine, New York, too.
Yeah, New York.
I imagine it was intimidating.
It was major intimidating for me, man. And all the stuff
I would have been scared shitless.
I was scared. I was like, damn. And so what I did was what I did, and it was basically self-sabotaging. That's really what it was. Because I didn't really believe in myself. And no joke, I tore the back of a McDonald's bag and I wrote my letter of entrance and sent that to Pratt. And the dean of the school wrote me an acceptance letter on a torn brown piece of bag as well. And I was just like, I guess I'm going to New York. Wow. I told my mom, and that's how I got accepted into Pratt, and so I got accepted into Pratt and ended up doing really well, graduating and that
still
was
kind of that same like sort of visual design, commercial
visual communication design with more of a focus around like this time now. I mean, grad school, I did a lot of studies around film and photography, and so that was where I started to spread a lot of my wings around photography and film, storytelling, but it was much more directed towards commercial. And so because I was getting into different agencies, ad agencies, and working around commercial and storyboarding, brand design, et cetera, and so I got an intern through, what's the name of that agency? Camel Ewald West out of LA. Okay. And so I won that internship through, I don't know if they're still around or not though, but it was the American Association of Advertising Agencies, which is the 4A group. And so I competed, won that, and from there launched me into an internship with Camel Ewald West out of LA. And so I had an opportunity to work on many different ads and TiVo ads. And I was a junior art director at that time and, working with a really cool creative team. And I learned a lot of, working with art directors and creative directors and photographers.
We'll get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, I want to tell you about the new Deco case colors from Decked. Deco cases are solidly built, weatherproof, go-anywhere gear canisters, and they come in a variety of sizes and configurations that allow maximum versatility for whatever ways you can dream up to utilize them. You can get them with a variety of trays and dividers, as well as foam inserts that can be customized for carrying everything from camera gear to power tools. With a handful of new colors, including Ranger Green, Blaze Orange, and Cool Gray, you can match the case to its intended use. So Ranger Green for that low profile blending in look, or Blaze Orange for that can't miss it, won't forget it at the campsite, this stuff is important look. Deco cases are a great way to get in on what Decked has cooking for you non-truck owners as well. And like their truck bed organizers, they're made in the USA. Shipping is always free. Visit decked.com/flyfish to learn more, and then get out there, get decked, and get after it. Well, it seems like it sounds like the perfect foundation for basically what you do now.
It is.
I mean, a good chunk of your sort of, output now is you're working on film, you're doing photography, portraiture.
Absolutely. Being able to have this this really interesting opportunity of how life unfolded for me. I cut my teeth in pretty intense agency world, you know, balance creativity, balance, with
Having to sell shit.
having to sell and compete, because in that world, you don't last very long. If you don't got what it takes anymore, then you're gone. I mean, it's a cutthroat type of world, and I had the opportunity to last for a pretty good long time, for quite a few years. That led me where I was able to work in agency worlds. I work in design firms back and forth. My last exposure was working for it was like the fall of the towers in New York, which I lost my job. And so I was like forced into becoming a freelance creative, and when I was forced to become that freelance creative, that was when I really had to turn up the notches, because now it's like I'm not working for no agency, but now I'm having to create a full time of living off of my talent.
You got to hustle.
I had to hustle hard
when you're doing that gig.
And I hustled, man. There's a lot of New York stories, but I tell you, the big story is on my hustle was, no joke, I was 8 months behind rent. That's no joke. 8 months behind rent, living living in Brooklyn, and I was, at that time I was living in a loft, and I think my rent was like around $4,500, $5,000, something like that a month. So you can.
This is like
add
the
that
early.
Up,
This is like the early 2000s.
Early
aughts.
Early 2000s, and I mean, it was like I was ducking and dodging my landlord, and it was crazy. I was in a place where my family couldn't even bail me out because the debt, that's foreign to them. Yeah. There ain't nobody making that kind of money. That's foreign. It was like, Chad, my mama was like, I could just pray for you, son. And so, but I kept at it, and doors closing. I'm getting these small jobs, identity jobs and branding jobs, and everything's adding up, but it's not really getting me where I need to get. And one day, this is a crazy story. A good buddy of mine that I know, his name is Christian. I don't want to say his last name, but his name is Christian. And he was, had a really good job, and he was like this, fashion house buyer for Russell Simmons for Phat Farm. Yeah. And Christian, I was like, Chris was like, hey, you know what? They're working on some stuff. I may be able to get you in the door. If you can do it, you're going to have to, really, bring it to the table. And I said, Christian, please. And because he knew I was in a really bad situation. I said, man, please. And so that door opened, and it was a door to Phat Farm, to the VP, not Russell Simmons, Russell Simmons, but who I was connecting with was Rev Run. And so I walked in there to get, and also his other part was, his name was Rashid. And so I walked in there, and it was me. My first meeting was getting an understanding of what they were looking for. Yeah. Because they have opened up that they were looking at different agencies to help with this new line that they were launching. Mm-hmm. And it was, I don't want to go all in details, but it was a footwear line. You know, it was a footwear line that was very, very new to Phat Farm, and I guess you could say they was looking to be maybe like that next Nike from the urban world. And so I learned it. I got my assignment, and I had like 4 or 5 days to come back to them with maybe 3 to 4 concepts. I called up a buddy of mine who I went to school with at Pratt. He was a copywriter. And I said, dude, this is what's happening. Let's do it. And so we went head to head. I acted as an art director. He acted as a copywriter. I came to the table like 45 concepts.
Of like shoes?
45 concepts of shoes, themes, and ideas and everything, and bringing it to the table. And some was good, some was bad. You know, but I was hungry. I was hungry. And one of those concepts they gravitated to and they loved it.
That's great.
But here now I'm getting tested, you know, and so that test was to see how, because they knew that I was hungry, but the test, you know, from Rev and Rashid was like, okay, we want to do this. Where's your photographers at? You know, we need, and you know, I was like, I didn't have no. I mean, I was a photographer, but I wasn't at that level yet. You know, and so I didn't have, because I was representing myself kind of like an agency, you know, and not as a freelance creative. But that's how I came to the table, as an agency, and so I was like, I have it to you, you know. I have a portfolio. I was lying my ass off, you know? and so
fake it till you make it.
right. And so they said, okay, well, you know, we need to see photographers who's going to execute this, blah blah blah, and I need you to have, you know, some photographers name their portfolios on my desk by 8 a.m. I said, no problem. I shot out, got it. I was, they were located in Soho. I got out of Soho, Midtown. I got out of Midtown, went down to Soho, and I started getting on the phone, making phone calls, and I start calling up like photographer reps, you know, and calling each rep, telling my story. Hey, this is what I'm doing. I went, you know, Phat Farm, blah, 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 blah. Click. Hey, this is what, click, everything. And, you know, and it kept, you know, so many freaking, you know, phone slam until one time when I made a phone call, they said, well, won't you come down and let's talk about this? And I said, okay, cool. So I shot up to Midtown. I think that's where, like, maybe Midtown and Soho, and went to the office. I told them everything, what my whole story is. And I told them, like, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I need to do, blah, blah, blah. And the guy at the agency says, okay, we're going to support you and help you out. They put together their top best 5 photographers in New York. They took their name off and made a card and put my name on it.
Oh my
and
God.
put that in the portfolio. And I walked in there at 8 a.m. and I had 5 of the top freaking New York photographers. The low end was 35,000 on up, you know, and
Yes.
you know, and you know, he said, "This is you?" I said, "Yeah, man, this is me. You know, I can do this." You know, and he said, "Okay, well." You know, let us know when we're going to shoot this, and we need we need a call sheet. I didn't know what a call sheet was, you know. And I was like, okay, yeah, I got you. And then I get on the phone and I talk to a friend, man, what's a call sheet, man? You know, and he explained to me what a call sheet was, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna put it all together. And I was like, living off the edge of my seat on that one, you know. And I ended up winning a really nice deal, and they became my first client, and made enough money to where I was able to go back and take care of my past rent. You know, I just dropped that down, able to move forward, and you know, and so that's really what launched me into becoming more entrepreneurial. You know, and it also gave me a really good sneak preview of my ability and what I can do, you know, and you know, and so,
I mean, I'm definitely seeing a theme here of, like, you know, you just, whether it's coming up with an idea, or putting yourself in a situation where you have to come up with an idea, but like one way or another, you're just doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I was kind of thinking of this on the way down too, when we were driving down. It just, you know, I think a lot of people, a lot of us, and myself included sometimes, like, I have a lot of ideas, but I can't say I follow through on them all, whether because of my own, you know, just like kind of getting distracted by other stuff, or because I have a kid or whatever, or whether because, or, you know, maybe it's because
the quality of the idea.
Well, the quality of the idea, maybe. you know, or just the sense that it maybe it's just too hard, right? But and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you're the kind of person that's like,
doesn't matter.
I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, whether, I mean, you spend a lot of time filmmaking nowadays, you know, and making a film, even if it's 15 minutes long, is not easy.
It's not easy. No, it's not easy.
But I mean, you know, and maybe this isn't really a question. Maybe this is just more of an observation. But you know, I'm seeing that in all of this stuff, Soul River, Love is King, filmmaking.
Yeah.
You're going for it.
I'm going for it.
What do you think the with film, and maybe a little bit with photography? I know we were talking a little bit about your portraiture on the way down. Like, do you feel like you have an aesthetic vision or mission or goals in mind with the projects that you take on, or the projects that you seek out?
Aesthetically is always around larger than life approach. You know, being able to bring people into their story of who I'm shooting, giving you a sneak preview on who they are and how they stand. You know, we can stand certain ways or walk a certain way. It tells a whole lot about our journey, what we faced, which probably why I really gravitate. And, you know, I think my basis is doing portraits and photography and connecting with people. And, you know, I tend to shoot in a really like a dynamic approach, using angles and lighting as a way of enhancing the person's story and who they are. I think some of my work that people has stressed that, you know, it's very strong, you know, and it's not soft. And I think that's just me bonding with that person and really wanting people to really feel who this person is, you know?
Yeah.
And
I really got the sense of that with Inward, the film you made about Michi Meko.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, that was really fun. I think I told you I interviewed Michi for the Fly Fish Journal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember exactly when that was. That was like 2020.
Yeah, probably
2021. But
3-4 years ago at least. But.
You know, he's such an interesting guy. His art's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just his whole style is fantastic. But that was the really cool thing, was that film I felt like was it wasn't just a film about Michi.
Yeah.
It was a reflection of Michi.
Yeah.
From, you know, just, you know, sort of the basics of the film itself, but then getting into some of the sort of graphic elements of the film that kind of come out and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. There's many different elements that wraps around him.
Yeah.
You know, and as you're aware from the interviews you have with him, he's a very dynamic person. You know, there's a lot of layers to Michi, and I think that's really what I'll try to look for in many different people. All of us have layers. It just depends on, are we willing to show those layers? You know, and when I do get an opportunity to work with someone, or even someone like Michi, you know, that's really kind of like what I'm gravitating, is those different types of layers that I want that audience to be able to connect with. Because if you can connect with those layers, you're one step closer to understanding who this person is. you know, and we come into different spaces, surface level, we engage. And I would think, well, I do this a lot in my personal relationships with girls and girlfriend relationships, you know, and when I'm first meeting them, I say, you know, there's a lot of layers to me. Mm-hmm. I immediately say that there's a lot of layers to me, you know, and to meet me for the first time, second and third time, maybe a week or even 6 months, potentially you're probably just learning maybe 1 or 2 layers of me. But if you watch how I walk and watch what I do and how I sip my coffee to how I engage with other people to interacting with my service dog or me being on the phone, you start seeing different layers that you're going to be able to learn from me by watching instead of me telling you. Mm-hmm. And so with Michi, with that film, that was one of my missions, is that everybody is complicated. Michi's complicated, but he's wearing those layers in front of you.
Yeah.
Which gave me like a cheat sheet in a way, mm-hmm. of how I can be able to tell a story about him, but around him, where you can get a 360 of how he's rooted, and how he moves through the world, right? You know, and some people are much more complicated than that, but it was really fun to work with Michi Meko. But that's kind of like with a lot of my work I do. That's kind of like my base of how even down to my portraits, even though portraits are one-dimensional, you know, but but you can still be able to grasp there's something extra here, you know, and I need to pay attention to, you know. I did an exhibition of 12 veterans, and I'm not for sure you've seen it or not, though, but it was an exhibition of 12 veterans, and it went across the U.S. It was a really cool moving exhibition. Started in Portland, went to Seattle, went to L.A., different places.
All portraiture?
Yeah, all portraiture, you know, and it was shot larger than life, you know, 8 feet tall images, and, you know, really big images. I wanted people to bring them into their world, you know, and so I wanted to go big. And, but what I did is I shot their personality. And then once when I shot their personality, I said, here's the flag. And what I want you to do with this flag, I don't want you to disrespect this flag, but what I want you to do is use this flag as an extension of who you are today, not yesterday, you know. And it was interesting to see these 12 veterans, all walks of life, interpret this flag as an extension of who they are in a really unique way. And it was really, really cool, you know, to see that, you know. So when you walk into this exhibition, you're seeing really unique layers of different veterans that are communicating now on a whole nother level. Yeah. And it just demands you to sit there and pay attention to what they're trying to tell you, you know. Did
that exhibition have a name?
Yeah, it was, what's it? Damn, I forgot the name. It was a while back. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Damn, man.
Well, we'll see if we can.
I think it's called
if we can find it.
Heroes or something.
Okay,
like
cool.
That, you know?
Yeah, we'll see if we can find it and put some links to some of this stuff.
Yeah. It's out there somewhere, you know. But yeah.
How do you?
Damn.
Damn. X.
It's like, come on, guys, wrap it up. How? Before we go, I mean, how do you make that connection with people when you're taking a portrait? Kopi was talking about this earlier. He had some questions too, but like, is there a process to it? Is it just sitting there and chatting with somebody, or? I'm
going to say this in a weird way. For me, I find something about that person to where I fall in love with. And once when I can find what that is, and when I make that connection of me falling in love with, when you fall in love with something, you want to like uphold that, right? You want to protect that. You want to support that. It's almost like marrying that person for an hour, right? And that's my go-to of what I'm trying to accomplish when I'm doing these portrait type of settings with people. Is me finding something about them to fall in love with. You know, and when I'm able to make that connection, I'm able to work with that person. I'm able to not say a lot, but I can say enough. It's like, again, going back to the relationship with your partner. You with their partner for so long where your partner can maybe, speak what you're about to say, right? They got you. So I'm trying to accomplish that within an hour or 2 hours of a setting, and I'm talking with them, making them feel comfortable, but I'm also working my way to where I can finish their sentences. Yeah. So yeah.
That's nice, man. I'm going to be really nervous making a portrait of you here after this is all said and done.
It is all
Chad,
totally all
will you marry me? No, Kobe, not like that.
Not like that.
right.
Have you had any fun fishing this summer, either up north or just around home here?
Yeah, I got out on the water a couple times.
Yeah.
There's this thing where when you're fly fishing so much that you want to get into the industry, you want to work, and it was like, oh man, this is gonna be. I get to fish more, but the reality is
You don't.
No.
exactly, exactly. You don't get out to fish as much as you do. So,
First question I get from people when I tell them I'm the editor of Fly Fishing Magazine
You must
is like,
go all over.
you must go everywhere fishing.
So many trips. He's like, well.
yeah, I know, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely
and,
right. Even some of your guides don't even fish.
Yeah.
They're out there catering to their clients.
Totally.
But when I can, get the opportunity to break away, a lot of times it's local. I'm shooting up to the,
sure.
like the Sandy River.
Cool.
A good buddy of mine, his name is Brian. He's a pretty big guy in the industry. He's also my board member. And so we stay in contact a lot, and he's usually someone that I would get on the river with. And we actually got a really cool trip happening in October. I'm looking forward to breaking away. But yeah, a lot of times if I'm not fly fishing, I'm tying flies.
Yeah.
That's another way that keeps me,
stay connected.
Stay connected. And I'll travel with my vise, and I'll pop it up in the hotel. And even though I may not have a rod with me, but I'm sitting there tying flies. And,
Sure.
Watching some funky news station in some far off weird hotel, but
Going back to the Arctic soon?
Yeah, I'm heading up to the Arctic in 2.5 weeks.
Cool.
Heading back up there.
With Love is King or Soul River?
It would be Love is King, and then after that, it would be. I'll be coming back from the Arctic to Denali, Camp Denali. I've been invited to speak there for 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Which is going to be really cool. And I'm looking forward to that. And then after, I'll come back to Portland for a little bit, and then I'll head back up to the Arctic Village in September for, the
Kind of that gathering that you
gathering,
mentioned, that where they're just trying to get as many people as they can to kind of try and be like, hey, we gotta get this word out. And
exactly.
Well, yeah, we'll throw some links up with this episode when we post it, and to so people can connect with some of that stuff. And kind of see what's going on, see what you're doing, stay on top of the issues, especially up there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's, you know, I think I've said it before, but it gives me hope to know that there's people like you out there doing the things that you're doing. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for taking the time to sit down and chat with us for what is now almost a couple hours. That's when you know it's a good conversation, when it goes when it goes 2 hours or more.
I hope you got your audio.
Fingers crossed.
Because we can't repeat this.
No,
Can't do this one again.
It's all there. It's all there. There's two different versions. Well, Chad, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Thanks a lot,
very
Chad.
much. Yeah, thank you.
That is it for today. As always, thanks for listening to Sidechannels, presented by the Flyfish Journal. Sidechannels is produced and edited by yours truly, with production support from Jeff Galbraith and Colin Wiseman, and digital and web support from Jesse Lou Galbraith, Colby Messick, and Kopi Voita. Thanks as well to our sponsors, Decked. Get decked and get after it at decked.com/flyfish, and Patagonia, dependable gear built to connect with wild fish. Visit patagonia.com/fly-fish to learn more about the great stuff they've got going. And of course, if you're enjoying Sidechannels, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to rate and review the show. It makes a big difference and helps us reach new listeners. Don't forget to have fun out there, enjoy the process, and we'll see you in a couple weeks with the next episode.